I'm checking on my trough. Look, I'm done. Well, I haven't covered it with tulle, but I wanted to share this with you. Hi, it is Robbie from Southern California, and this time I did it different. Now I made this tag, and I want to keep track of this plant. Look how beautiful it's growing. So let's step back for a minute. That is a volunteer for this trough. Now last year, you watched me set this up, and I did it just exactly as I did last year. It was so successful that even all this year, I have been still eating tomatoes out of this trough because I froze it. It has been wonderful. So that one is a volunteer, and what I had in there last year was a cherry tomato I had bought and a sun gold. So I don't know what this will be. I don't know if it's going to be a hybrid, if it's going to be a cherry tomato. If it's a sun gold, it will be a hybrid because the sun golds are protected by being hybridized. So whatever it is, it's doing great. Look at the stalk on this thing. See how thick it is? And you know what we don't want? Hold on. Is we don't want leaves touching on the bottom, but we can drop them down there. So I'll have to always make sure there's no leaves on the bottom. It keeps the plant with air around it, and this way it won't get any problems. Now this one is a sun gold. I actually purchased that one. There were 2 plants in the pot here that look like there might be 2 in a pot, and I should be able to separate those easier, and that would actually give me a rooted plant right away. So let's look at this one. I haven't stepped back here. See, this is also a sun gold. At the nursery I saw them. It was the only one with 2 distinct plants. Separated them with great success. So I have one somewhere else and one there. So I know that's going to be a sun gold growing. Now this I planted last year. This is a pot marigold. I moved it from the truck bed. That's where they came out. They just, some seeds I threw in there one day. It was some wildflower seeds. They started to grow, and now we've got hundreds of these things growing. So it's not happy because it got kind of moved a little bit. I had to lift the pot out. And as you can see, it was in a small pot. Okay, so all winter I've been putting all those leaves in here from the tree collards, and they're turning brown. I just dumped whatever I could dig up on the ground all over. This is a volunteer. Whatever grew in here last year, which was a sun gold and a cherry tomato, this is one of the offsprings, which they call as a volunteer. I went ahead and left it in this pot, or I might have put it in the pot when it was little. That's going to be one. I'm going to get a sun gold in there, and I'm moving the pot marigold back, which I just took out. I'm going to straighten it up a little. Problem is, it sent its roots already. See the small pot? You know how I layer? It's sent it into that one, and I don't want to break it apart. So I'm going to load soil all the way up, see if I can straighten it a little, and then the next one will be the next tomato. And then I'll start covering it when it's, with tulle as the time comes. But right now we're doing really good. See that? Let me go move some of these leaves. There's a small pot there, and this one is a separate one. And then I put the small pot in a big pot, and then this pot's got big holes. Everything has got drain holes. Keep that in mind. You never plant without drain holes. Yes, I've done it. I've told you it was an accident, and I grew a whole tote of tomatoes without having drain holes. But that was an accident, and it was very fortunate that it didn't die back on me. That was very odd. But anyways, this is here to add water to the bottom. Now what happens is when I water this plant, which is layered, and it doesn't have to have 2 pots, it could have been in one, it sets water underneath. Now, as the plant grows, there are holes. This plant will set its roots into the trough. So will both of those tomatoes. There are holes on the bottom of these pots, and as the tomato grows and fills out and gets bigger, it will send the roots in there, and this whole thing will be like a single raised bed. The advantage of this is big, and I mean it. And this is what you have to understand if you're having any issues, especially in hot, dry areas. When I come to water with the hose, and I water any of these pots, the plant itself will always get water to its roots where it needs it. If they were in the ground, or if they were just planted in there as 3 plants, they first of all would be fighting with each other for root space and nutrients out of the soil, which I'll talk about in a minute how I do that. By being planted in pots with large holes underneath, they're not fighting with anybody, especially when they first start growing. They're growing inside the pot, their roots are taking off, and then as their roots start to fill the pot, they will look for an escape. And that's what they're going to do. And because it is sitting and pushed into the soil, see, this goes down underneath. All of them go down, at least touching the soil itself. Then they'll find that spot where the holes are and they will escape into the trough itself. At that point, they're not really fighting with each other. It's not a matter of that plant sending its roots over to the other tomato plant. No. What it's doing is it's sending its roots straight down. Ooh, I found some more water. I found nutrients. I can keep growing, and the roots go down. So again, I come over, I water this plant. It gets full water, whether I use regular water or compost tea. It feeds this plant. It's not fighting with the other plant at the entire stage of its life. And then on the bottom, it can find extra nutrients because, as you know, there's no soil in there to speak of. What it is leaves from the garden that I collected all winter long, filled it all up with any debris. It doesn't matter if it was a flower that had a leaf on it that didn't look good. Everything's collected, everything's put in there, and then I just top it with any soil from the ground. Just shovel it in there, top it, and I'm telling you, in a matter of weeks, you could dig into that and almost everything you put in there will be gone because it turns into soil, which is really compost. I just call it soil. Old school. That's just what I learned when I was a kid. So all of those will grow great through the entire growing season, well into fall and sometimes into winter as well. Now, the only other thing I have to do here, which is important, is I have to cover this with tulle. Now, right now, nothing's bothering it. And I'm going to leave it for a little while. I've already put my rope here, and you know how I used my rope with the tulle last year. You can go back and see that video. I strung it over the hoops, and then I attached it to the rope. And what am I using to hold that rope up, tied really tight? Frog tape. There's the tape. Here's the tape from last year. Look, it's still there. I took the rope off and put a new rope. And look at the tape. I can pull it off, but that's last year's tape. Look, it's still sticky. And that will hold it. And so there's tape there, and on the other side. It's amazing how some of these tapes and some of these products we can use that's not for the garden work fantastic. I use it for staking up plants and everything. So that will hold the rope for the entire season going into winter, as you can see. And then I can use clips. I'll show you when I do it for the tulle, but I'm just going to wrap it around, do it lightly. I don't have too many critters here right now bothering my tomatoes. Tomatoes are the last thing right now they bother. You know what they bother? My brassicas. They love eating the greens. My poor purple tree colored. So they've been going there chewing on that, but I will want it, I don't want to take any chances, so I will wrap it. As far as the pot marigolds, I can leave these and take this off. Oh, look at this one. This one's going to have 6 flowers. One flower, can you see that? Is growing flowers out of there. What's happening is the seeds are actually growing in the head. And instead of just forming seeds, it's forming flowers. Is that not cool? So I'm going to leave this as it is. I'm basically done. It will slowly collapse as the season goes on because, again, leaves are fluffy items. And once they compress, it will go down. And that's perfectly fine. I won't have to shovel it out. I did not shovel anything out. All I did was top up what was there. And the worms and the microbes and everything in there, decaying everything down to the way I want it, they're doing the work for me. I don't have to till nothing around here. So we'll keep an eye out. You'll see how it goes for the entire summer. Right now we're still in spring and it's going to be great. And with this, you just come through here once in a while. Just groom your plants a little bit. Don't have to do anything with the tomatoes except maybe keep the leaves from touching the soil because insects and they say diseases. I don't like calling it diseases, but whatever. And then I can just take the leaves. See, look at this. Do you see how it's all breaking down? It breaks down that quick. And now those leaves are gone. Why do I bury it if I get a chance? Because the moment I put it underground, the earthworms will come to it and they'll decay it down and break it down the way I want. But again, there's no fighting in here. If this was a single raised bed and I had those tomato plants all in there, everybody would be fighting, because immediately, that's what I wanted to explain good, is these roots in this plant are in there. Same thing in here, same thing in here. Right now, they're only in there because it was just planted recently. And they're only growing in their own container. But again, if it was one raised bed, you put too much in a tote or a trough or a raised bed, they immediately send their roots out sideways. And they will go and try to invade the other one's space. That's why they grow so good this way. I do a lot of my container gardening this way. It's not just a raised bed, it's layering. And layering you'll have more success for, especially for vegetable plants. And if I wanted to, do I have anything here exciting? No, but I could take, this is just a milk carton. I have the ability to set maybe some flowers in there, maybe some geraniums in their own pot. And then again, I can move them if they get too big. But you could just fill this whole thing up as long as you're layering. If I'm not layering, you really only got to enough space to have 1 or 2 tomatoes in a large container, because then the fighting starts. You couldn't put squash in there. You can't put a lot of different plants in there if they're all in one raised bed. They will take over the other one's space. And here, it's been very successful for me for years. And if you're having an issue, try this. If you're not having an issue and you've got your own way of doing it, you most certainly always do it your way, because that means you've got it going for your area and your containers. But if you're having issues, they don't last that long, they fizzle out, try something like layering, and I think you're going to find and be surprised how well it works. So with that, have a wonderful day. Don't forget to eat what you grow, and boy, do we need to find a good place for that. Here's another tomato, and that's what I did here. See this? I took a couple volunteers that were in here and I put them in the milk cartons, just like this. And then I decided which was the nicest one, which was tough because they're really all nice over there. There's a big one in the back. Look at that. These are just volunteers. I have no idea what they're going to be, but I will find a home for them because I don't want to get rid of them. Could I put in a couple more containers with tomatoes? I could, but the more you put in a container when you're gardening like this, the less you're going to get. If I just put one in, it would be perfect. But because I don't know what that is, and I know what that is, 2 has worked out perfect. I did it once with 3. It was way too much. I couldn't even find the tomatoes. It was so thick in there. And then you get your hornworms in there you can't see. And it gets so heavy in there. Even the birds can't find the hornworms. So 2 I found out was perfect for this large trough. And there it is. And the trough is about, not quite, it's about 2.5 feet that way. And it's about 4 foot that way. And then the height on it is about 3 foot. But this is perfect. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I'm giving you ideas. I'll read through your comments. And I'm going to go get some more coffee. It's early in the morning. And I'm going to go have breakfast. I just wanted to come here and see how everything is going. So with that, have a wonderful day. And don't forget to eat what you grow again. Bye-bye.